So I am Chelsea Gray. If you don't know who I am a platinum leader out of North Carolina. And I'm really pumped about this call because we work so hard as a community to just make sure that we're making as many healthy choices as we can. And I think one that is daunting to a lot of people is diet. And something that I have researched over mildly realistically over the past several years has been food dyes, because I kind of just see it everywhere. My degree is in behavioral therapy. So I knew even 10 years ago when I was doing this, one of the very first things that we were told during our training is, if you are working with a child with a behavioral issue, to cut food dyes. So this has been known, 10 years isn't that long, but it's been known long enough that I'm a little surprised that this is not a more common topic. So I am very lucky that my children do not have immediate reactions to food dyes. But as I've been digging deeper and deeper into different things, I don't want them having them. Even if they do not have immediate reactions to food dyes, there are so many different things that I didn't realize that it got so deep. So we're going to go first. Tracy has slides for me. I'm just going to use them sort of as a guide. I'm a very visual person. I remember things better visually. So I wanted her to share some of these for me. And I'm so sorry that is so crooked, but I was actually watching a doctor do a presentation on food dyes, and I stood up and took a picture. So bear with me. Okay. So this is a short list of the dangers of food dyes. You can see on this chart, these are the food dyes that are allowed in the United States. Other countries, and I'll touch on this again in a minute, do not allow the ones that we allow, if any. So all of the things on this side, dangers of food dyes, are linked to cancer, ADHD, allergies, hypersensitivity, asthma, and hyperactivity. That is just the tip of the iceberg. And everything linked on the left side is done with clinical studies. This is not just observation or guessing. I was always under the impression before to avoid red dye 40 because it caused hyperactivity. Red dye 40 is the most studied dye for children and hyperactivity, but there are studies all the way back from mothers who are pregnant and their adult children having issues with food dyes. So please do not think that it is just children. But these are the most common and most known issues with food dyes. Tracy, can you go to the next one? Thank you. Okay, so I'm not going to make you read this whole thing, but when you're shopping, okay, and this is why I thought it was really important to include, we're targeted. We are absolutely targeted with food dyes. I'm just going to read the highlighted parts. I'm more than happy to send all of my studies. I read like 10 clinical studies in full before we did this class because I like to be educated. So in our 810 products in one grocery store in North Carolina had food dyes. 43% contained artificial food coloring, and produce was the only area of food that did not have food dyes. But can you hear me? Let me see. Can you guys hear? Okay, cool. Okay, so, but this is not listed on here, but a lot of food, of oranges, apples, and all of those type of food, they do use coloring on the outside, but they're not labeled. So this is only saying what's labeled. The highest percentage, or 41%, or 41 of 66 companies, 41 of 66, that's a massive, massive percent had food dyes, okay? And most of the products were targeting children. This feels very unfair to me as a parent, because it's really hard to be in a grocery store and have your kid be like, hey, can I have this? And you be like, no, over and over and over. So I do have some tips on healthy shopping for later, but that's really hard. And I think a lot of times, one, parents don't know better, but two, you want to say yes sometimes. You want to say yes to your kids. So that is a really frustrating thing for me, that these markets are very aware that children don't know better. Tracy, can you go to the next one? Okay, so this is one of the better studies and more detailed studies that I found that was not just focused on hyperactivity. So I really kind of wanted to share it because we're talking about why avoiding food dyes. So again, I'm just going to brush on the highlighted things because I don't want to take up too much of the time on things like this, but there are really powerful words in this study. So they're talking about the gut health and how it hurts the gut serotonin, which is a critical factor. It talks about gut inflammation. And if you look at the second paragraph, it says, we have found striking and alarming the common synthetic food dyes. That is, those are major words for doctors and researchers to use. And so I thought that that was really interesting, that it's not a maybe, it's not, when these studies, I didn't find any of them saying maybe this is a problem or sort of this happens sometimes. It was a common factor of it's striking and alarming, major results, consistently finding. So, and it says right here, this is a significant advance in alerting the public of the potential harms. Okay, so allergies, immune disorders, and behavioral problems. Allergies is off the charts. A major, major, major amount of children have allergies. I think most children either have allergies, immune disorders, or some form of behavioral problems. I did notice in my research that people are, the researchers are linking sleep disorders to behavioral problems. While that is not necessarily what I would consider a behavioral problem, they are linking those. So when we're thinking behavioral problems, I do want you to also include sleep. So we're thinking, 88, and I am going to go ahead and say there are lots of causes. I'm not saying your ADHD child will be cured or your non-sleeping child will be cured or anything like that, but we're talking about contributing factors. So for behavioral problems, we're thinking hyperactivity, we're thinking focus, we're thinking lack of sleep, we're thinking mood disorders, and all sorts of things like that when we're thinking behavioral problems in here. It's a lot more. On the very first slide, we talked about behavioral problems. And I think most of us know avoid red dye 40 for those issues, but this is just one study that is saying gut health, gut inflammation, and how it all sort of reaches back. It's a lot more than little kids acting up when they have a red lollipop. Okay, so I wanted to include this because I thought it was important for them. Next. Okay, so y'all know I'm all about the research. It's just kind of my love language. And like I was telling Tracy's before the call, I wanted to show some research because I wanted to show how serious that, we kind of think this is. This study, and I did read the entire study because I'm that person. So red 40 is marked with the red on the bar graph, and the yellow 5 was marked for the yellow. They did a study of colon cancer cells and how fast they were damaged when they were exposed to red 40 and yellow 5. I wanted to show this because if you notice, the damage was done within hours. This was not done over years of exposure. This was done within hours. And this was only one type of cell in the body that was damaged. Okay. We all see all the time, and I get it. I get the exhaustion. I am right there with you. But I hear very frequently that people are saying everything causes cancer. Nothing is worth avoiding. And I think this study kind of speaks for itself. If you have damaged cells in your body, In this example, they focused on colon cancer cells. If you expose them to things like food dyes, they are going to spread and damage faster. Okay. This is immediate. This was 4 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, and 32 hours. This is not years and years and years of exposure. So I don't say this to be scary. What I do say this to say, okay, I think this is time we take this seriously. And it's not, while we do see long-term effects, there are short-term effects that are deeper than the behavioral issues and the sleep issues and the rashes that we're talking about in other studies. Next. I know y'all love my voice when I do that. Okay. I really like this image. It's only 3 of them, but I think it gives you a really good idea. This shows places where these dyes are completely banned, you guys, and I shouldn't laugh. Like, the reason that they put on this chart, it said allergic reactions, but when I actually dug deeper, it was saying, it's for blue, it says allergic reaction. Austria, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Norway, Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland completely ban them. Places like England have different bans on them. Children and babies are not allowed to have them. And I'm like, why do we think that there's an age cutoff? Like, what are you, 12, and all of a sudden food dyes don't affect you? But different. So it's not just allergic reactions. A lot of times their sensitivities are listed as allergic reactions. They're not allergies because they do affect everyone. So there is some examples of like common things they're in: cotton candy, canned peas, sports drinks, ice pops. This one annoys me a lot, and it is children's medication. That really, really, really frustrates me, especially because I do have a medically fragile child who has to take medication. And this is not just over-the-counter medicine. We had to specifically ask that her medicine not be mixed. She has a liquid med, not be mixed with any flavoring, because the flavoring comes with dyes. And it tastes awful and she hates it, but I'm not going to let her take 9 milligrams a day of, like, also a lot of prescription pills. You'll see they're blue, you'll see they're red, and there's no point. There's no benefit at all to adding food dye to your anything. There's not a single food dye that has any nutritional value at all. And food dyes actually don't have flavoring, they're color. So we'll get back to that in a second. Okay. So red food dye is covered in more places. I think red food dye and yellow, red 40 and yellow 5 are the most studied. So you can see that they do cover bigger areas. Sweetened foods are the #1 thing that you'll see food dyes in, but medication is a close second. So I thought that was interesting. We're so far behind that we really do need to take an individual responsibility for understanding what's going in our bodies, because nobody's doing it for us. I am seeing someone say, yeah, people do have dye-free versions. And that was a really good point. We vote with our money, and I'm going to get to this in a minute. But if we stop buying things that have food dyes, they'll make better alternatives for us. So I think that's important to know. Tracy, next. Okay, so what exactly is food dye? I didn't want to just say this out loud because I was telling Tracy again, I was in a colored group, food dye group. And I was looking at the objections, because I think it's important, if you're going to, teach on this, to understand where someone could come with objections. And a lot of the objections I was seeing were, there's no way that's true. Where are you getting your research? And if it wasn't safe, it wouldn't be on the shelf. So this is literally an organization, a nonprofit organization that talks about different foods and food dyes. Okay. This is where it comes from. Artificial food colorings were originally manufactured from coal tar, which comes from coal. Today, most synthetic food dyes are derived from petroleum or crude oil. Tracy, will you please go to the next slide? Petroleum is, this is the actual definition of petroleum. I'm going to skip some of it, but it's a thick, flammable yellow to black mixture of gaseous liquids and solid hydrocarbon. It does occur naturally. It is gas, gasoline, kerosene, fuel, and lubricating oils, paraffin wax, and asphalt. This is what food dyes are made of. So it's cheap. You say why, and I did research why is this what it is. There are the other leading, and I do have a note on this that I just probably took like 9,000 screenshots preparing for, is bugs. The other one, the other option for red food dye coloring we used is made of crushed bugs. I'm going to say this wrong. Cochineal insects, as they're known, are scale insects that are in their pre-crushed state. They are black and white. When they are crushed, they become red. So our options for food dyes currently, it's a very common in makeup for red lipstick. And so the reason that they use this is it's incredibly inexpensive. It's mass produced. It's so easy to get. And so it's the cheapest way for companies to add color to their products. And so this is exactly what it is. This is what it is. And there's no debating it. You can look it up yourself if you want, but I think it's really, if I gave you a little container of petroleum, over 15 million pounds of food dyes are used just in the US every year, 15 million pounds. So if I gave you your portion, which would be a pound, maybe, depending on your diet, half a pound, a quarter of a pound, you would not eat it and you would think I was disgusting. It is only because it is manufactured to be pretty that people are willing to eat it, and because they're unaware. Tracy, we go to the next. I don't remember how many more slides there are, to be honest. Okay, so actually you can just remove this for a second and we'll go back to that. I want to talk about some shopping tips really quick. So we're thinking, okay, I don't want to do this. So what are some tips I have on my phone? Sorry, or on my computer. Sorry, real quick. I'm going to pull it up if I'm able, which I don't know. I don't know how to use my computer, so I'm just going to do it from my phone. Okay, so sorry, 1 second. So some shopping tips. Pretty easy. When you're looking at the list of ingredients, dyes will usually be listed last. So in the US, dyes will usually be listed last. So that's a helpful tip to know, because a lot of times, realistically, if you're eating something with food dyes or picking from that type of area, it is going to be a longer list. I'm not here to tell you what to buy, and except for without food dyes. I get it. It's a lot. So just like when we're talking about ditching, switching in our homes, I really want you guys to give yourself some grace. Okay. You don't have to go from, like, we have Nutri-Grain bars right now in my house that probably aren't the best. My kids love them. There's no food dyes in them, and so you do swaps as you can, and there are absolutely options. So cut yourself some slack. Start just like we ditch and switch a couple products a month, through loyalty rewards. We say, hey, start with one room, ditch and switch that one room, move on to a next one, so that it's consistent and you're able to stick with it. So food dyes will be at the end of a long list. You want to look for words like color, pigment, and dye. Okay. A lot of dyes will have the color name followed by a number. So it will say like blue 1, green 3, FD&C, yellow 6. This is interesting that I was not aware of before. If you see the word lake or aluminum lake, that means color has been added. So you'll see like blue 1 lake. This is a technical term. They say, I don't know why, they didn't really explain, but if you're looking for hidden food dyes, you look for like red 40 lake or blue 1 lake, or aluminum link. That means that there's a mix of food dyes in your food. Any product with the words FD&C, which is food, drug, and cosmetic, or D&C, contains an added dye. Okay, so FD&C or D&C. D&C stands for drugs and cosmetic. That contains an added dye. FDA certified color additives have special names. CI, you might see sometimes on your products. That will be color index. So that it's supposed to tell you what color is actually in it. But in layman's terms, and most of us don't get that. You don't understand. It's a mix of, I mean, artists mix 14 different colors to make a hue. And a lot of these food dye people are literally paid to make this pretty, and it becomes their art. So if you see CI, it means color index. And that can be for cosmetics, but not for food. So a couple tips for shopping. And this did not surprise me because I'm a huge fan. Aldi, every single Aldi brand product does not have food dye. They have completely gotten rid of their food dye. I love that. Surprisingly enough, okay, so I'm not saying every single thing at Aldi, but their brand. I can't remember the name of their brand, which I should because I'm like Team Aldi all the way. But Walmart is slowly transitioning. So within, I think their goal was like 7 years, they would not have a single great value product that contained food dye. So if you are looking for, if you're, you know, at Walmart and your Aldi and Walmart are very, very budget friendly, both of them. So don't give up if you're seeing that you're seeing food dyes for great value, because they are transitioning things out. So, you know, maybe in January we'll have a food dye, in December it will not. So I think that's very optimistic. And we said this before with the point about Motrin or Tylenol having dye-free options. Walmart has more studies than any other food consumer about product inventory and what's working and what's not. People are speaking up and they are spending their money elsewhere. The other thing that I found when I was researching this, which I like, Walmart noticed an uptrend in people buying, just happened to be not happen to be, but they noticed a trend in people buying products without food dye. So those products were going up, and they want you to buy great value over, I don't know, whatever. Cheetos definitely have food dye. So that's a terrible example of a different brand of bread. They want you to buy the bread also has food dye, sometimes, not always. Anyway, so if they're noticing you're buying a certain type of bread that does not have a food dye, they want to match and go, okay, what's the difference between ours and theirs? And so this is why they transitioned. They noticed shopping trends for people wanting less preservatives and people wanting less food dyes. So that is why they did that. I really feel very strongly that the more we buy non-food dye products, the more options we're going to have as time comes. So just this week, a couple days ago, I was at the grocery store, and I would say half of the items, we're healthy shoppers in general, but half of the items, especially like treaty type things like granola, Nutri-Grain bars and stuff for the kids, half didn't have food dyes and half did. Another tip, don't just assume that because Nutri-Grain has dyes that the off-brand doesn't, because I noticed a huge trend in that brand names will have food dyes and then the store brand will not, or vice versa. So they're not exactly the same. And so keep that in mind. Another big tip for food dyes, and this was something that I saw a lot in the groups about people wanting, they said, oh, well, my kid won't eat it. Okay. Another tip is normalize eating a variety of colors of food. So not only for yourself, you'll get used to it, but your kids, your grandkids, anyone who's watching, brown is not wrong. musky green, sometimes isn't great, but it's not wrong. So having the people around you see you eating not bright blue foods or bright orange foods and other things like that, then that will make them realize, okay, this isn't that bad. Eat fresh. That's another thing. Eat as fresh as you possibly can. Shop in the produce. I always try to do at least 70%, if not more, of our food from the fresh area, meaning it's perishable and I can read all of the ingredients. So fruit, vegetables, meat, milk, and cheese. At least 60 or 70% of our food comes from that. I personally, and I think I can't see all the comments, but I think this is what Tracy's saying. I'm really tough with my kids. Like I'm like, we eat healthy, tough. You're gonna, they don't eat their, if I make a big, nicer meal for lunch and they are like, nitpick around and then out for snacks, guess what? Their leftover lunch is their snack. And that might sound strict or whatever like that, but I'm spending money and time on making these meals for my children, and they're going to eat. And it's just, they don't care. They don't fight back. Obviously they do ask for certain snacks. They have favorites, but if it's not in the home, or it's definitely noticed that it's a treat, then it's not, a huge deal. So the other thing is, if you are going to give your kid a treat, which let's say you're doing Cheetos or something like that, don't feel guilty if every once in a while they have Cheetos. It's not the end of the world unless your child has an allergy or a legit type. My kids don't, so I feel comfortable saying every once in a while, if you want to have a Cheeto, your leg's not going to fall off, but call it a treat. Especially when this is a behavior, like I learned this when I was in college, is when you have something that you do not want to have all the time, be sure you're using the language that it's a treat. And that's always worked really well for us, that they know, you don't get dessert every night. Some nights you do, if I feel like it, some nights you don't. It's a treat. And so I think that helps. The other, another tip that I have is make homemade food. And it might take more effort. It might take some meal planning, but if you're making your meals, like let's just say you're going to have spaghetti and you are making the marinara with, I don't know, crushed red tomatoes and seasoning and meat sauce. And you can pick your whole grain pastas. You don't have to check. You don't have to worry so much. And I don't find that it's any harder to make your own marinara sauce versus dumping from a can, because you're like, I'm throwing it all in the pot anyway, and so little things like that is make your own food as much as possible, because what the ingredients are and you can focus on that. Okay, so I'm going to go over a couple products first. Well, actually, Tracy, will you show that last slide? And then I'll go over some products. Okay, so I really did want to cover this because while I want to say duh to myself, I was not pleased to see this. This is just soap, but it says F, D, and C colorants are used as soap dye by crafters. They are produced in a lab. We talked about F and D, and C stands for Food and Drug Cosmetics. They will have a number: yellow 5, green 8, red 40, but they also are allowed to call it a trade secret. They are allowed, if you look at Bath and Body Works, for example, and I was spent my whole allowance on Bath and Body Works when I was in middle school. So I get it. The body sprays, the lotions, the shampoos, the body washes, those different shades they have that they don't want people copying are trademarked. And so that makes it an industry secret or things like that. And they don't necessarily have to disclaim it, especially because it's not taken internally. That's really frustrating for everybody. So some things that, besides ingestibles that contain food dyes, that also get into your system, anything that goes on your skin is going into your system, and it happens within a minute. It is very, very fast, and it goes into your bloodstream. which is just as bad as it going into your mouth through your gut, because your gut actually tries to protect you from some of these things, and your skin, it doesn't have that luxury. So we're talking shampoo, conditioners, body washes, body sprays, makeup, lotions, mouthwash, toothpaste, over-the-counter medicines, supplements, okay, which again is frustrating because you think you're trying, I mean, granted, I only use Young Living supplements, but you think you're trying to make these healthy choices, or the average person is sitting there trying to make these healthy choices and not realizing what they're adding. So I'm going to show you now. I'm going to try to be quick, but I some really easy healthy swaps with Young Living products. Number one, my dog is crying for me outside of the door. Number one is Mighty Bites. Okay. So Mighty Bites is the children version of Master Formula. All my kids take this every day. I don't have a Master Formula packet with me, and I'm so sorry about that, but I'm going to tell you about Master Formula really quick, and then Mighty Bites ties into it. So Master Formula is a full spectrum, multi-nutrient, complex supplement, providing vitamins, minerals, food-based nutrients. And I'm going to get to why this ties into food dyes in just a second. Food-based nutrients to support general health and well-being. It has SSI technology, which means it has its time suspended, and it goes through your body in the schedule it needs to process and to really absorb it perfectly. They're delivered in 3 distinct delivery forms. It contains a blend of certified organic food extracts. It has B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B9. It includes a prebiotic and is perfect companion for Life 9, which is our probiotic. It nourishes your cells and protects your cells. It provides whole food ingredients, naturally supports general health and being. It helps your gut flora. Remember, we talked about that study before where our gut flora is just destroyed with food dyes. It gets rid of free radicals, and it has antioxidants, vitamins, minerals. It also, I love this about it, it comes in these little packets where you just grab and go. So it's multiple capsules, but these are my very favorite for travel. When I can't pick and choose my supplements, I grab a packet of this, and then that's what I take. The reason I wanted to put this with Mighty Bites is very similar. Nutrient dense, food based, superfruit plants, energized. This is the kid version. Okay. I think it is so important that we give ourselves. Hold on, Joe, can you get the dog? My dog is like obsessed with me. He's crying at the door. I think Joe's downstairs trying to be quiet. Anyway, there's only so much we can do, okay, with our food. I think we can do a whole lot, but I think part of giving ourselves grace while we're learning is understanding where we can provide real whole nutrients when we're shopping and trying to understand our options for food. Okay. My kids get this every day, even though we eat really, really well, because I don't know where their nutritional gaps are every day if I'm not giving them blood tests, which I'm not, and so having these really good options while we're learning and giving ourselves grace on learning the best things for our food and the best things for our food markets and stuff like that. To me, having a full nutrient food-based supplement really, really cuts a lot of the time. So Amber asked what the starter age is on Mighty Bite. I believe it says it says 4. I've been giving it to Max since he was 18 months and he's never had an issue. That's me. I'm very comfortable with it. Max takes 1. My bigger kids take 2. Max literally every morning goes and points to the supplement cabinet because he loves the taste of these. And Molly has to take her morning meds every day. And then Max lines up and points to the supplement cabinet because he wants this. So Mighty Bite. Another thing is this is Mighty Pro. Okay. This is the pre and probiotic for kids. Life 9 is it's the best probiotic for adults. Okay. Life 9 has 17 billion active cultures. Again, I showed you some of the studies because I wanted you to really understand this is not just a behavioral issue. Food dyes are tearing up guts, okay? And this will help not only to replenish what we need on a daily basis, just through natural life, but give some healing through, all the gut issues that we're accidentally exposing our families to. I also, I think this might be, no, this is 2. This says 2. So, okay. This is empty because we use this constantly. I have another one in the pantry, but it's sort of the same idea. This is Power Meal, okay? This is a meal replacement, but we use it and I put it in popsicle molds. My kids love it. I have done juice in popsicle molds. They want this. I have done lots of different things without dyes in popsicle molds. They want this. So what I do is I take 2 scoops of the Power Meal, which has formulated with 17 essential vitamins and minerals. It's made to support healthy digestion. Okay. If you have gaps or you're just trying to give yourself grace, this is so easy. I do frozen berries, organic, no food dye added or whatever, frozen berries blended with this and 1 scoop of Ningxia greens. My kids can taste Ningxia greens. If I try to hide it other places, they can't taste it in the Power Meal for some reason. So my kids are taking this and blended fruit in popsicles as a snack. That's it, and they love it. And I was I just said this, but I was really surprised because Fisher was like, I love this one with all the fruit. And he thought it was a little bit weird that there were seeds in it. But I was like, well, sometimes, when we use real fruit and things like that, there are going to be seeds. And that was plenty for him. But there are really easy ways to find snacks that don't have dyes. And you can make this. I mean, putting it in, I put it in a blender, and then once every, I guess it's 4 days. And now it's hot. And my kids are doomed because it's not even that hot yet, but they think it's hot. And so they're wanting one every day. And Max saw me make this. And I was texting my friends about it because it was so funny, but he was like, popsicles, and didn't understand it had to freeze. And if it was gross, my 2-year-old wouldn't be hounding me for popsicles. So it is a really good alternative. And adults can enjoy it too, but okay. We talked about eating clean. Okay. And fruits, vegetables. This is the fruit and veggie wash. We eat a ton of fruit and vegetables. I try to grow them with very limited success, but we have a farmer's stand down the street that I go to 2 or 3 times a week. And I prefer to buy local when I can, but then how many hands have gone through? This cleans it. You need 1 capful in a huge thing of water, let it sit. This also not dye related, but I'll give it to you. It's really, really good for stripping your clothes and your sheets. So a 1 capful of this with dyes. So there's multiple uses for this. It lasts a super, super long time. Clean your fruits and veggies. When you're, like I said, one of our easy transitions, shop on the outside of the store as much as you can. 60% or 70% of your food should be fresh. And that, with a lot of people, it's going to be fruits and veggies. Super easy veggie wash. It's the best. And you're going to be super grossed out when you see all the junk that comes off the bottom. Okay. So the last image that we showed was about the dyes that are in hand soaps. So this is the best hand soap ever. This is my favorite, the Christmas Spirit one. And I'm going to be honest. Sometimes people get a little sticker shocked by the cost of the soap. So it is nourishing. It is amazing, but I got some tips. Get a foaming hand soap dispenser for $2, or this is what I did at the beginning. You can go to the Dollar Tree, get the toxic one with the foaming hand soap, dump out the soap and rinse it. And then for $1, you'll have an empty one. Take a third. Well, I guess you'll need to buy 2. You can dispense the thing 3 times and it's the same. And it works so well. No dyes, none of the extra nasty additives that this call is not about. And if you're anything like me, my toddler is obsessed with washing his hands, which is great. but now he wants to do it all the time. And I've tried after he wants to do it. I'm like, okay, let's not use soap every single time. And he won't let me. So this is a really, really good, you can dilute it 3 ways. Plus it's not any, when if you buy this big one, it is not more expensive than any other natural soap. Okay. This thing's massive. This is the foaming hand soap refill. So when this gets empty, you add some of this. It says you can do 4 refills. That is fake news. That is if you fill it all the way to the top without water. Yep, Luscious Lemon refill. I have them all. And when I have people sign up, that's one of the first things that I tell people to buy is this. And then you can just get the foaming hand soap on Amazon or the pump on Amazon or whatever. I fill it to 1/3 and then fill it up with water, and it lasts and it lasts and it lasts. And it still feels full, and it lasts forever. So that's a very good money saving tip. And again, I said about Bath and Body Works before and blah, blah, blah. We have oils. We can make our own scents. We do not need we don't need them to be purple or whatever color. They add purple to make it clear, which I don't understand. None of ours do that. So that's a really, really good tip. I forgot something that I think is important. So I'm going to go back really quick. We talked about dyes and supplements. This comes from beetroot. The color in this comes from beetroot. You can see that it's like kind of a pinkish. It comes from beetroot. So it's literally fruits and vegetables. It's beetroot powder. That is why it is pink. It does not have red dye 40. It doesn't have any of the other dyes. So there are options. Yes, they're more expensive, and that's why this is a higher quality supplement. But I wanted to make sure you knew that. Okay. The other thing, and this is just a general tip now that I have because I think it's important. I brought out shampoo, lotion, for adults, lotion for kids. You can totally use them interchangeably. We just like them. Mouthwash, toothpaste. Okay. All these have dyes. If you went to CVS or if you went to Amazon or anything like that. And I know it can feel really overwhelming to go, okay, I want to go through my entire house. Okay, guess what? Why don't 1 month on your loyalty order, do shampoo, a lotion for you, and a foam and this refill. Okay. This is your bathroom, the kind of like necessities for your personal body care. And then the next month, switch the you can see my kids with the top's lost. It's all dented. It's real life. And then next time switch to oral care, because the kids and adults, why do you think Listerine's blue? Why do you think the bubble gum for kids is pink and purple and things like that? But what I am kind of getting to is don't overwhelm yourself. That is totally the beauty of loyalty rewards is you pick your niche. You want to ditch and switch that month and focus there. If you want to ditch and switch gut health supplements 1 month, awesome. Make it for in May. And then next month, go and you can put it for save for later and then work on things you didn't know had dyes, lotions, shampoos, things like that. And it keeps you on a really good budget. And it also keeps you with the loyalty points back. You're going to be able to replace some of these things for free. So that is the end of my presentation. I only went 17 minutes over. I'm so sorry. But I hope it was helpful. And I hope that you're seeing when you're shopping with a company like Young Living, who does not have food dyes and doesn't have these chemical dyes or anything like that, you really are getting what you pay for. The quality is unmatched and you're not seeing these hidden dangers. And I say this, I've said it for years, but part of the reason I love Young Living so much is I don't have to know all these things. I know because I've experienced, not because I researched them and all their ingredients and all their stuff over the years, just like I researched these food dyes. And never one time have I said, that's sketch. I can't believe they hid that. It's more like, how did they make beat? I'm like, how many beats does it take to turn my, like, that's what I'm worried. I'm like, wondering, like, how many beats did they have to use? So having this a high quality product that we can trust with a company with such transparency relieves so much of the stress for us, because we know that they're doing the research, they're doing the studies, they're doing the tests before I can even get to them with my own microscope. I hope this was helpful. I do want to end on, please give yourself some grace. Do little by little. Don't necessarily recommend throwing everything in your pantry away, but make swaps as you can. And as you, they're there and they are reasonably priced. It's just going to take a little bit more time. So hope this is helpful. Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Chelsea. That was so good. Please